Recording in progress.
I will call to order the meeting of our Common Council for Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. Clerk?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. We have 11 members in the room and 11 members in Civic Clerk.
All right, thank you, Clerk. Now please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for an invocation offered by Alder Galvin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alder Galvin?
Thank you. I'd just like everyone to take a minute and reflect on our upcoming Memorial Day and what it should mean to all of us here.
Thank you, Alder. All right, entertain a motion on the minutes. Motion to approve made by Alder Prophet, seconded by Alder Stevens. Those were for approval of the minutes from May 6th, 2025. Any changes? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The minutes are approved. Agenda. Motion to approve the agenda has been made by Alder Eck, seconded by Alder DeLee. Any amendments there or changes? Alder Johnson?
Make a motion to move item P, Finance Committee, after I, appointments.
P after I. I was moved by Johnson and seconded by Prophet. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendment is approved.
Motion approved as amended.
Alder Johnson makes a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Seconded by Alder Presley. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The agenda has been approved as amended. My report. Just a couple things real quick. As Alder Galvin alluded to, we have Memorial Day to mark this upcoming Monday. A number of different ceremonies going on in town and in the area. I will definitely be at the United Patriotic Society's event that they always have down at Admiral Flatley Park. So I know I've been there with Alder Eck in the past and would definitely encourage other alders to participate. United Patriotic Society, just to those who aren't aware, is a longstanding partnership between the city and a number of veterans groups that are represented through the UPS. And so it's a great relationship and always enjoy attending their events. So encourage folks to do the same on Monday at I believe 4 p.m. Also have another event coming up in the community before we get together for our next council meeting. There's an Amplify Pride event that's going to be put on in conjunction with OBI's first Levitt series or Levitt concert series of the season. So June 1st, Sunday, I think starting at 3 p.m. So again, encourage members of the public and council to join for that. Should be a lot of fun. Down at Lake Park. Thank you. Yes. And then last, but certainly not least, we have some very bitter news. Not sweet really at all. Director Grenier is going to be leaving us, I think, before our next Common Council meeting. Last day is on June 2nd. And so I just wanted to take the opportunity to publicly thank you for all the work that you've done on behalf of the city, I think for nearly 18 years. We've got a lot of committed staff in the city of Green Bay, but truly, I don't think there is anybody who lives and breathes Green Bay more than Steve does, and so that's something that's come through, every step of the way since I've worked with Director Grenier, and I think it's clear to all of the alders and many members of the public. And I am not an engineer, but I think I can recognize a talented one. And Director Grenier is an engineer's engineer, a really talented, intelligent, thoughtful guy, and a great explainer as well, to me and to members of our council as well. So thank you, Director Grenier, and I would encourage everyone to express our appreciation. Any words for us?
Usually engineers fall into two categories. There's those who tend to look at their shoes and don't say very much, or there's those who go on forever. And unfortunately, I think you wound up with the latter of the bunch. Obviously, there's a lot of people to thank, first and foremost, my wife and my family, who I don't know that they knew what they were signing on for when I took this job, but a lot of night meetings, a lot of time away from home, and it's going to be fun to spend some time catching up and making up for lost time with my wife. To you, Mayor, and the Common Council, serving this position, being entrusted with it, has definitely been an honor for me. Members of the senior staff, you folks have become like a second family to me, and I'm definitely going to be missing you. My staff in DPW, to be able to lead this department for the last 12 and a half years has been the honor of my career. I didn't know if it was going to last real long, especially seeing as the first day didn't start out very well. For those of you who don't know, my first day, we wound up with an unexpected 4-inch snowstorm. We were short-staffed by 35 people. I had to pull off everybody from garbage collection and put them in snowplows that they were unfamiliar with driving. And then while all that was going on, one of our 36-inch water mains, our primaries coming into the city of Green Bay, ruptured. And we had to deal with that fiasco. So that was not an auspicious start to a career as a public works director. But my staff rallied and worked together with everybody around the city, and have continued to do so for the last 12 and a half years. And I've said it before, I'll say it again tonight. I'll take my DPW staff and I'll put them head to head against any DPW staff in the United States on any task, and we will win. That is a fantastic group of people that work in our department, and it's been the honor of my career to be their leader for the last 12 and a half years. I am going to miss being here at City Hall. I don't know if I'm going to miss the late night meetings, but I was just remarking to a couple of the alders before the meeting that I'm not going anywhere. I'm still going to be in Green Bay. I'm still going to stay involved with things. As a matter of fact, about a month ago or so, I was having a conversation with Alder Hutchison, and Alder Hutchison asked me what plans I had in retirement, and I said, I really don't have any. I'm kind of, I consider myself to be an unrestricted free agent at this time. And Alder Hutchison suggested that maybe I should consider a future run on the Common Council. And I reminded him that, Alder, you are my alderman. And he thought about it for a second and immediately responded, well, maybe then you should run for Common Council. So you never know, that might be in the future. But it's been a pleasure to work with everybody here. I very much enjoyed my career. I came here with one thought in mind, and that was to make the city a better place when I leave than that which I found. And I hope I've succeeded on that front. So thank you to everyone. I really appreciate it.
And I know Celestine or Clerk Jeffries is not going to be having you go too far from Central Count. I hope.
That is correct. I've already assured Clerk Jeffries that I will continue to work at Central Count for elections at a bare minimum. So I'm here for life.
There we go. Thank you again. With that, we'll move along to announcements from our council. Alder Eck.
Thank you, Mayor. As we came in today, there was a reminder. I know we got an email, so I just wanted to let everybody know Green Bay Metro Fire Department is unveiling 2 letter trucks, and they're making it an event here at Lake Park on Monday, June 9th. at 6 o'clock. There will be food trucks, safety resources, touch a truck, ceremonial fire truck push, and sounds like a fun time. So I thought I'd let everybody know.
That's great. Thanks, Alder. Other announcements? Going once, going twice. All right, on to appointments. On reappointments. Motion to approve made by Alder Profit and seconded by Alder Hinkfist. Any discussion on the reappointments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The reappointments are made. New appointments. Motion to approve made by Alder Profit, seconded by Alder DeLee. Any discussion here? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that appointment has been made. Next, because of the amendment, we are on P, report of the Finance Committee. I'll entertain a motion first. Motion to approve made by Alder Profit. Seconded by Alder Eck. Sounds like Alder Johnson would like to pull one. Any others? Hearing none others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved with the exception of item 1 on that, Alder.
Motion to open the floor to hear from interested parties.
All right. Alder Johnson makes motion to open the floor, seconded by Alder Eck. All in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is open.
Chris, there you are. Yes.
And then if you could just state your name and address, and then we allow for 3 minutes of testimony.
Okay, my name is Chris Olson. I'm with the New Community Shelter. My address is 1342 11th Avenue, Green Bay. And I'm here just basically to show our appreciation on behalf of Terry and everybody at the New Community Shelter for your consideration of this money that you're thinking about giving us today. I would like to tell you that 21 years ago, the city gave us money for our current facility, and we've done some pretty amazing things. And we really want to continue that, and we think this is a great project to do that. So really, I just want to say thank you for just even your consideration here today. Very much.
Thanks so much for your testimony. Any questions? All right. Thanks for your work. Anyone else on this item?
Hi, good evening. Good evening. My name is Tara Yang. My address is 1706 Chateau Drive, Green Bay, Wisconsin, 54304.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Natalie Baumstead. Address is 239 Seminole Lane, Green Bay, Wisconsin, 54313.
We're here today on behalf of Wello. We're a local nonprofit here, and we're asking for funding to build the JBS Urban Barn. We were able to attain a federal grant called the RFSI. It's a grant that supports food system work. And with that grant, we're able to secure funding to purchase equipment for the JBS Urban Barn. And so we're hoping to really support the socially disadvantaged farmers around our community here. And as we know, majority of the farmers who sell produce at the farmers markets, there's over 60% of them who we have worked with for the past 3 years. So we've built culturally relevant education, training for these farmers. We've supported them in building different revenue streams. We've supported these socially disadvantaged farmers in also attaining different licenses and materials to really make their business efficient. For some of these farmers, this is their sole income. And with this building and the equipment that we're able to secure, it'll help them really make this a sustainable business, farming a sustainable business for not just them, but the generations to come as well. And so, Natalie, I don't know if you'd like to add some more to this, but I think I'll end by saying that the support that we've received from the city so far has been just really inspiring to not just us as an organization, but our community members that we're serving as well. And there's over 50 different farmers that we've been able to really work with and expand their business and really just, I think, make them feel part of the community. And so another thing I'd like to add is that JBS, of course, the focus of that is housing. However, as we know, housing is not siloed. It has to come with economic development. It has to come with stability and income. And so these farmers, they live in Green Bay, but they have to source they have to go elsewhere to farm. And so that costs money. That costs a lot of different resources. It takes a lot of resources to do what they do. And so this is just going to help enhance their income and make them be able to afford housing as well. So
Thank you, Tara. So my name is Natalie. As I mentioned, I'm the executive director at Wello. And again, want to echo Tara's comments. We have really appreciated the partnership from the city on this project, specifically in the JBS urban farm development. We think this is a really innovative approach to looking at a space and looking and kind of reimagining what it could be. How can we have a space that is multidimensional and can have mixed income housing? How can it be activated in terms of a boulevard? How do we create a space that also really leans into the agricultural history of Northeast Wisconsin, which is in farming? And that farming history and that farming future is changing. And so we really see this as an incredible opportunity to really invest in kind of a transformation hub of sorts, something that is multifaceted, that has multiple uses. First and foremost, certainly it's going to support our local farmers, those folks who might really be looking for that added capacity building, some of that mentorship, some of that education. As Tara mentioned, we already have a list of 50 farmers who are interested. From a Wello's standpoint, we have already secured additional funding to ensure that the investment by the city is not only matched, but exceeded in dollar amounts. So money to actually activate that farmland adjacent to this building, and also money to actually bring in that equipment, some of that minimal processing equipment that can help take that sweet potato and slice it and dice it and get it ready for sale. So this is really an opportunity to invest not only in our community and kind of the tomorrow of our community, but also to help support small businesses, which are farms in our community as well. So we appreciate your consideration tonight.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for our guests? All right. Thanks again.
thank you.
Anyone else on this item? Motion to close the floor made by Alder Johnson, seconded by Alder Eck. All in favor will say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is closed. Alder Eck makes a motion to approve, seconded by Alder Johnson. Discussion on that? Alder Presley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to propose an amendment. So I would move to edit the number 309,000 of ARPA funds to 750,000 of ARPA funds to not only match the Wello grant, but also to be put towards expanding bathrooms or to building bathrooms through the Parks Department. I was hoping to get some clarification though from Director Ditchite and Director Renier-Wig on if that's something we can do with those ARPA funds.
Sounds good. Is there a second for that? Seconded by Alder Profit. Director Ditchite and then Director Renier-Wig on that.
Sure, I can add to that. So we briefly discussed this at a previous finance committee, and then at the last finance committee last week, we talked about it. So we feel that for approximately $750,000, we can not only meet the needs of the Wello Barn project, which is the required match for $309,000 to match their grant, but also get public restrooms as an add-on to that building. So it'd be part of the same structure, and we would put it right next to the splash pad and destination playground where the previous community shelter was being proposed. So, and I think that the actual dollar amounts that are left in that account is $752,843 if you want to max out that account. But if you want to round it to an even 750, that would probably be adequate too.
Okay, thanks, Director. And then Director Renier Wig.
I think maybe the comments you're looking for would be regards to the tranche of money that was originally meant for, which was purchase of vacant land for affordable housing development. Our department did have that money for, I think, well over a year, and we really struggled with finding that hunk of vacant land in the areas designated by ARPA. So, I mean, as a team, we looked at reallocating these dollars and thought this would be a good use to use in the JBS project.
Thanks, Director. Additional comments, Alder Presley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was something that was brought up in the Finance Committee, but didn't really have a lot of conversation, so I wanted to make sure that the full council was able to talk about it. I'm in favor of this. I think it makes sense. My priority would be affordable housing. That's what it was originally put towards, but this is part of an affordable housing project. This is something that really, when we're talking about this, when we hear our guest from Wello talking about the scope of this project, it's a community hub. It has all of this value. Having porta potties there doesn't really jive. It's a bit of a juxtaposition that I think if we have this money, if it is not if we're not able to use it for purchasing land or properties, I think this is as good a use as any for the funds that we have in that ARPA account.
Okay, thanks, Alder. Questions, Alder Galvin?
Director Dish, $441,000 for bathrooms.
That would be for construction costs plus hiring an engineer or an architect to design it.
Well, I thought we had this building already designed.
No, we had a building that was designed, went out to bid, and it came in at over $4 million. So that building was scrapped, and we're not able to afford that building. So what we're proposing now has to be redesigned.
And then, from what I heard, this is replacing a community shelter. What happened to the community shelter?
Well, it was a combination of kind of a food production area, and it did have offices in that building too, for Wello to partially work out of there. And then there was one community room that could be rented out by the public. So that's what that originally design was intended for. But as I mentioned before, we don't have those kind of dollars to put towards a facility of that magnitude. So what we're proposing now is much simpler. So it's really a barn to do some food production and store farming equipment, and then public restrooms, and that's it. So we would not have a community building necessarily that's open to the public to rent out. If you wanted to do that, we'd have to, allocate some more significant dollars towards this project.
Okay, so $441,000 to hire the staff to redesign this building, and then the leftover would go to building the bathrooms.
Correct. Yes.
We don't have a community shelter.
Correct.
And we're not going to have a barn either.
Correct.
Is there anything else from this project that was originally proposed that the city council approved that's not happening?
No, that's the only thing that we didn't have money for in the original design.
Okay.
Was the building.
And this money only could have been used for buying property?
That was the allocation that council made. I think originally it was $1 million to spend for acquisition of land for the purposes of building affordable housing. And then I think 250 was moved out of that at a future date, which left that balance of 750 in there.
And Director Dish, this will cover it, or are we going to find out later on we don't have enough money and then we've got to go back to the well again?
It's real tough to answer that question. What I will tell you is we will hire an architect and tell them to design a building to that budget.
Okay.
But when you publicly bid something, sometimes those prices are inflated. If you only have one company that bids on it, and I mean, you can't predict what the bids are going to come in at. All you can predict is to ensure that you're engineering it to a budget.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Alder Hinkfist?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm kind of with Alder Galvin on this. We discussed this about a month ago at the Finance Committee meeting. And at that time, when the request came in for $700 and some odd $1,000, we asked for the numbers. So what is this going to cost? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Director Ditchite, you weren't even sure that was going to cover it. That's $750,000.
Well, like I said, I mean, when you design something, you can never predict where the bids are going to come in at. That's why I kind of stated. I mean, we'll design it to that budget and put it out to bid. And
As a council member, we approved in the finance committee the 309,000, and now we're being asked to approve another 441,000 for this park without any knowledge of where that money is going to go. We transferred 250,000 just recently. We transferred 2 million from the RDA. So in my mind, I'd like to see some numbers on. I want to go with what we approved already in the finance committee. I absolutely believe there needs to be bathrooms and so on and so forth. But to just give a blank checkbook of 441,000 for an engineer and a bathroom, it doesn't pass the smell test with me. That's my opinion.
Any other comments? Alder Grant.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with Alder Hinkfist. I really wish this actually would have gotten brought up at finance, so I can support the initial approval. I would like to see this portion maybe go back to finance so we can have better discussion and get more answers from staff. To put us on the spot like this for that dollar amount is a little time sensitive, and I don't think it's fair to us as a council. Thank you.
Alder Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Ditchite, what is the construction contingency amount on this project?
we usually have a contingency of about 15% on these projects. Just to give you some comparison, I know that everyone might be thinking, it's a lot of money for bathrooms. I think for the Astor Shelter, which was primarily bathrooms, which with a small meeting room, I think we spent $550,000 on that, and that was 10 years ago. So asking for $440,000 for bathrooms is right in line with what they would cost.
Yeah, and I want to be clear.
Yeah.
I'm not questioning the amount because I do agree, right?
Yeah.
I know that's what they cost. And let me be a little bit more precise. When I asked for the construction contingency, I meant on some of the other road work which has been authorized within that site, right? And the reason I'm asking, of course, because we talked about that amount, and I just can't recall what the exact amount was.
I'd have to go back and get you those numbers on that construction contract. I know that there were quite a few change orders. A lot of things happened and changed during construction. I'm sure we're over 15% contingency on that project alone. But I'd have to go back and check the project numbers for that bid.
And I appreciate that because I'm kind of putting you on the spot and I wasn't anticipating asking this question. My recollection was that it was around $400,000 or $500,000. Does that seem to be in the right ballpark?
I actually think it's significantly more than that.
Okay, more than that.
Yeah,
Okay,
and that's why we requested the $2 million being transferred from the TID.
Okay, and the reason I asked that question again is the reason we made this motion at the committee was, hey, Wello has done a phenomenal job with securing this grant, and we don't want to compromise that. And so that's why I think we were all very supportive at the finance committee level to make sure that we authorized enough funding to secure that. To me, it boils down to sort of two questions. One is, do we support, right, that the vision of this project and that it does include bathrooms? And then the secondary question is, where does that funding come from? And I think there's a couple ways to look at that. The funding for this particular ARPA allocation, as mentioned, was for site acquisitions to support affordable housing. And I think we've now received 3 requests out of this fund. None of them have been for site acquisitions. And I appreciate, Director Renier-Wig, what you shared. I do know that there are lots out there, though, and none of the requests we've received have supported what the intent of this fund allocation was. And so that does concern me. And when we first kicked this back for the initial request, when it came forward, and we had a meeting with Natalie, which I appreciated, to kind of explore some alternatives around the potential of a development agreement. And her board came back and said, hey, some of the things that we talked about weren't quite in alignment with what they wanted right now. And again, I respect that. But I do think that there might be some alternative options here for us to do that. And I still want to proceed with the motion that's here today because I think it's important that we lock up that grant match because that is time sensitive and I don't want to jeopardize that. I think we have some time to talk about some alternative funding sources, and I'm willing to have that conversation at the finance committee and perhaps even with staff before then, because it would be nice to fulfill that vision. I just think that there's a few other sources that are better aligned. So I'm going to oppose the motion, not because I oppose the principle of the overall project, but I do think that there might be some alternative funding sources that might work better for this. And I really would like us, to maybe kind of drill down a little harder in those site acquisitions, recognizing that we do have an affordable housing need. And sometimes, a little background on that, the purpose of the site acquisition is because sometimes ownership of the land is the biggest barrier to development. And that's why that fund was targeted in the way that it was. And I'd like to maybe kind of drill down on it a little bit more to really try to honor what the intent of that allocation was.
Just to give a little bit of a history lesson, I think the original intent by you, Alder, or by Alder Johnson, I should say, was to essentially consolidate some parking lots within your district. That was not a purpose that's eligible under ARPA, which is why the language was changed to acquisition for the purpose of affordable housing development, which is an eligible expense within ARPA. So, as is investments in parks within eligible areas.
Yeah, just to provide clarity on that, because my intention was not that. My intention was site acquisition, and I offered up those lot consolidations as one possible option, which are actually not in my district. They're in Alder Profits district, and I'm not looking to split hairs on that. But
on Broadway district, I guess I should say.
And again, that that wasn't my motivator. It was one possible option. It's not a surprise that a lot of vacant lots exist in the downtown area, so that are suitable for housing.
Yeah, Alder Profit.
So I support this amendment. I hear all the comments, but it's not ARPA interest we're talking about, it's ARPA funds. And I just want to clarify, we have it allocated and we're hearing the intended purpose isn't viable and we have 6 months. So my fear is this isn't interest dollars, this is actual ARPA. This is dollars that go away if we're not using them. We have a prime project in front of us. I think many on this body were frustrated that our park bathrooms weren't open. I have had nothing but great success so far this summer. I get to watch other families go to parks and be thrilled that there's bathrooms open. So to support this project, which I wasn't on the body when it was initial, or I was the last piece of the JBS project, but initial discussions surrounded, it's been bottom line, it's been a long time coming for this project. If you're going to support a once in a lifetime, generational, fantastic, huge 30 plus acre project, which includes a destination park, which Parks has been working so hard on, and you're not going to support bathrooms, I have a hard time with that. I mean, we made an investment in those shelter locks and we're seeing tangible benefits from it. So to have this gorgeous development and to have Wello putting in the work, putting some of their own dollars up to match, and then to know that this $752,843 potentially will vanish if we don't, we're not having the site acquisitions. I trust our director when she tells us she's put over a year worth of work into this. I trust that. I don't want to see those dollars vanish, and I'm supporting them moving towards this project. I fear in the next 6 months we won't see something before us where we can use them. So I support this.
Thanks, Alder. Any other comments? Yeah, Alder Eck and then Alder Johnson.
I am not supporting the amendment. I support the original motion or the agenda item. And it's not that I'm completely against the possible allocation. I just would like it to go back to finance and be discussed more. I think that this was kind of a big surprise to add that much on to this particular agenda item. And looking at this, the city committed to a $309,000 cash match, and that's what this agenda, the original agenda item, is allowing for. So I cannot support the amendment.
Alder Johnson?
I just want to get clarity. Alder Profit said 6 months. Federal law gives us until the end of 2026, which is 18 months. If I could just have staff clarify or confirm.
Yeah, that's accurate.
2026? Okay, so we have a year and a half yet. No, we can't reallocate anymore.
Yes.
We have a year and a half. So I think that's an important point of clarification.
Any other comments? Alder Presley.
Just a question for Director Ditchite. Is there a timeliness element of this now? Is this something that you could put more information for and bring back to the Finance Committee if we just approve the 309,000 today?
Obviously, time is of the essence for this to a certain extent. I mean, we still have to hire an architect. I mean, once we know what the budget is, we have to hire the architect and give them the scope of work so that they can engineer it and put it out to bid. The longer that process takes, the harder or more difficult it's going to be to hit that timeline of having it completed by December of 2026. So,
Thanks, Director.
And then for Director Renierwig, I'm hearing two things now, that there's maybe something we can do from Alder Johnson, and you said that there's not a lot of options that you've looked into. Can you just clarify or respond to that?
Well, look, all I can tell you is that you're probably talking to the person who's acquired more property for the city of Green Bay in the last 20 years, right? So I like to buy property. Trust me. We're looking at the list here. We had a team that met every week. We reviewed over 50 properties. You have to understand the cost of real estate's gone up. There's a limited use for this land. You have to have enough land. It's got to be in the right area. You don't want to overpay for land because that's not fair. We went through a lot of properties. We really worked diligently. Will a property come up in the future? Possibly. I mean, I can't make guarantees that there isn't a property that's not going to come up. Maybe that we'll be interested in buying, but I can just tell you that we worked really hard to try to spend this money.
Thanks, Director.
Yeah, I guess my final thoughts then are that I'm still in favor of it. If we have to bring it back to finance, I think that's fine, but I would prefer we just pass it tonight because this is, I know it seems sprung upon, but it is something that I trust our directors have looked into and have an understanding of what this sort of money can be used for and what it can't be used for. And 18 months really is not a lot of time when we talk about development. Yeah, I'm still in favor.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Hinkfus.
Yes, one thing I wanted to just follow up and say is I'm totally in support of the project, the barn, and even if we have to have the bathrooms. What we asked for at Finance was more information, and we got more information tonight than we did the last time when we were sitting at Finance. So I have no idea what bathrooms cost. If they cost $500,000, well, then lay it out for us so that we can move it forward. But when we were asked the first time, we had no numbers. And the second time it came through was for the 309, which we definitely approved.
Well, and just to be clear, I mean, Director Ditchite is ballparking what some of these costs would be. You don't have a hard number until you put it out for bid, to reinforce what he said previously. And also just to echo what Director Ditchite was saying about the original vision for this structure, that came in at over $4 million. And so staff is back with a proposal that's $750,000.
But see,
so
we
in
didn't
terms
even
of
know
what
that.
passes the smell test or what doesn't, obviously this is a much less expensive way to accomplish a number of things that we're striving for within the JBS development.
And I agree with you, Mayor, but that is not information we were given. So
we're talking about it now. Alder DeLee.
Can we just get an update on what that current building is? Because obviously the original one had got tossed out for the cost of it. And we talk about a barn in this match for the equipment that they're looking at bringing in as a match. So is this engineering going to be the new building with the bathrooms connected to it, or just an update on that, please?
Director Ditchite, you want to run through that again?
Yeah, so we're estimating that the $750,000 would cover the cost to hire the architect and to build the barn as needed for Wello's match, in addition to adding public restrooms to it. That's the budget that we're shooting for, if you approve the bathrooms.
So that would include the barn and the bathrooms?
Yes.
Okay.
Alder Hutchison.
I think it would be helpful if this does go back to committee to have something a little bit more formal to have a check on the square footage uh, of the bathrooms and get a little bit more clear view of what the cost is, because we can make it any size we want, right? So we can control that. And so if there's a presentation to finance that's a little bit more detailed, it doesn't have to be a bid or just sizes, that type of thing, to help justify the cost. Because I think if the cost is justified and we know what we're voting on, it would be helpful for that money. Thank you.
Alder Galvin.
I'd like to make a motion to refer this back to committee. There's a lot of questions here that people have, and there's a lot of information out there, I think, that could be presented to help us make a better decision. So I make that motion.
Is there a second for that? Just, I think we're probably going to say the same thing, but I think there's consensus on the 500,000 and consensus on the 309,000. So I don't know if referring the entire item back is what we're looking for.
And that's the clarity I was looking for. If you were referring just the amendment, or if you were referring the whole project.
Just the amendment.
Just the, okay.
I don't know if there is that. Yeah, I don't think there is a way to refer an amendment
Do we have to
committee.
on that?
Yes, I believe we. Yes, I mean the motion to refer is in order, but it's to refer the entirety of the item.
If we can't have, I mean, I'd like to see it go forward, the 309,000 that we have. I mean, I totally agree with that. I mean, that was a unanimous decision at committee. But there's a lot of questions about the rest of this here. And I understand what the director's saying. But I think we're better served handling this at a committee level than trying to muddle through it at council without all the information at hand that we need to make, I think, an informed decision.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Want me to say that all again? I just think I approve of the 309,000. The committee passed that unanimously. We support this project. We've been supporting this project all along. We want to see it come to fruition. I just think there's a lot of questions about the extra ARPA money that was asked for and the project itself. I think we can get more answers at the committee and then handle it at the very next council meeting. It's a delay of 2 weeks. I get it. Time is money. We want to get this thing going, but I think 2 weeks is not going to hurt us to wait that long to get it done. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if that answered the question of is still your intent to refer the entirety of the item?
If that's the only way to get it done, yes.
Well, I think there's a way to split this.
If there's a way to split it, I'm
We just split the question.
Yes, but he has a motion that's on the floor. If it has a second, I don't know if we have a second on that or not. To refer the entirety of the item back. So that's what is in order.
Okay.
So I think
If I don't have a second, it dies. All right.
if there, who seconded it?
I didn't hear what, I thought it was just the amendment was being referred back, so I'm not seconding that. I don't wanna hold the whole thing up.
Yeah, we don't.
Split the question, is that?
No, sorry, withdrawing, if that's the case.
Well, I think we need to take a. So if there's not a second, that motion fails. The amendment is still on the table. Unless there's a superseding motion on that. Alder-Eck.
Can I make a motion to approve the original agenda item? So an amendment on the amendment to go back to the original. I don't know if that's possible.
So Alder Grant's point, I mean,
Yeah.
the appropriate thing to do is to vote on the amendment
Okay.
at this stage.
Yep.
So is there any additional comments on the amendment? All right, seeing none, all in favor will say aye. Opposed, nay?
Nay.
The nays appear to have it. Entertain.
Move to amend.
Alder Johnson makes a motion to amend.
I would make a motion to amend, to adopt a motion to amend to refer to staff a sort of proposal on the project and other alternative funding sources that would allow us to complete the bathroom. So that would kind of be like a rider on top of the original motion that's there.
Second.
Motion to refer to staff to present at the next finance committee meeting costs associated for the construction of the bathroom and possible funding sources.
Is there a second for that? Second. Seconded by Alder Galvin. Discussion on that? Alder Profit.
Is that at the end of everything else in front?
Yes.
Okay.
Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That item has been amended.
Motion to approve is amended.
Motion to approve is amended, made by Alder Johnson and seconded by Alder Galvin. Discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that item has been approved as amended. Ordinance to second reading for adoption. Motion to adopt made by Alder Profit, seconded by Alder DeLee. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will use the board.
Just give me a moment. You may vote.
All right, it's adopted unanimously. On to the report of the Redevelopment Authority. Motion to approve made by Alder Profit, seconded by Alder Johnson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That item has been approved. Report of the Improvement and Services Committee. Motion to approve made by Alder DeLee and seconded by Alder Eck. Items here to be handled separately. Nothing for Director Grenier? Hearing none, all in favor will say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That report has been approved. Report of the Protection and Policy Committee. Motion to approve made by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Profit. Any items here to be handled separately? Hearing none, all in favor will say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That report has been approved. Next, just terminology change to flag for council and for the public. This used to be Protection and Policy granting operator licenses. This is now Green Bay Police Department granting operator licenses. Just for clarity purposes, that's actually what's happening here. So we do have that report here. Entertain a motion. Motion to approve made by Alder Profit, seconded by Alder Hinkfist. Any names here to be handled separately or abstentions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That report has been approved. Plan Commission. Motion to approve made by Alder Profit, seconded by Alder Presley. Items here to be handled separately. One. Any others? Hearing none others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved with the exception of item 1. Alder Stevens.
All right, thank you, Mayor. This item's being pulled because yesterday there was new information that was proposed by the future owner developer, and after conversations with Mr. Bucket Planning, it has been determined that it's best to refer this back to staff for additional conversations with the future owners. So I'll make a motion to refer this to staff.
Alder Stevens makes a motion to refer to staff, seconded by Alder Profit. Discussion on that? Anything? All right. All in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that item has been referred to staff. We've handled the Finance Committee, Park Committee. Motion to approve made by Alder DeLee, seconded by Alder Profit. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The Park Committee has been approved. Personnel Committee. Motion to approve made by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Profit. Items here to be handled separately. 2. Any others? Hearing none others, all in favor of approving the remainder of the report, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved with the exception of item 2. Your wish is here. A motion to approve made by Alder Johnson. Is there a second for that? Seconded by Alder Eck. On that, Alder Profit.
So I listened to personnel probably 3-ish times, some sections a little more. And I believe Attorney Kochart, there were some things that you had indicated that you would be willing to clarify. Particularly, I am interested in City Ordinance Section 2-82 regarding vacancies, and particularly the verbiage that, therefore, at the next regular meeting of the Common Council, all qualified applicants should be allowed time to make a presentation regarding their qualifications to council. The Common Council shall then, by majority vote, decide who will fill the vacancy. So my question, after listening to the personnel numerous times, are we in violation of our own ordinance by the motion in front of us?
The motion was to refer to staff to come up with a plan, I think some questions, but I would say you are reading the ordinance accurately, that the direction is to, at the next council meeting, for those candidates to be present and for the council to take action.
Okay, so with that, I have some other comments. So I guess really just looking at the dates and the timing, I hate to invoke the name Cellcom right now, but I am a Cellcom user, and just in the past week have struggled to be able to communicate with residents of my district. In fact, I had to have Alder Hutchinson assist me today attempting to use his phone at his kitchen table to communicate with a constituent about a concern. So that's just 1 week. What we're talking about with this vacancy process, when we have a clear ordinance in front of us that lays out the process, we're talking about going from 35-day vacancy to 49-day vacancy. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but as someone who is struggling with their cell phone for just 1 week, I think we all know how many times we receive inquiries from our neighbors. So I think we have a diligence not only to abide by what's in front of us in our own ordinance, but also a duty to District 8 residents to get someone in that seat. So with that, I know one of the things that came out of personnel was a question in relation to when we will be made aware of who these applicants are. My understanding, if the clerk would be willing to verify for me, this period closes 11:30 a.m. on a Friday, and that will be, those names will be posted by that afternoon on our council agenda. So my understanding is we will have Friday afternoon, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, to review those names. Is that correct, Clerk Jeffries?
Yes, Alder Profit, that is correct.
Okay. So with a few of those things in mind, I would make a motion to strike the recovering from some allergies as well. Strike the second sentence. And I would like to just go with referring to staff to seek input, but I am not in favor of delaying this decision to leave an entire district empty for 49 days.
All right. Alder Profit makes a motion to amend that item. Is there a second for it? Second. Seconded by Alder DeLee. Additional conversation? Sure. Alder Galvin.
This is for Clerk Jeffries. What was the date that Alder Weary formally resigned from his position?
So his last meeting was May 6th. His resignation letter was dated May 16th, but he did not serve after his after the May 6th council meeting in any capacity.
He didn't serve, yet his resignation letter is dated the 15th?
16th, the
16th.
Friday. Correct, at the end of the pay period.
How is it he didn't serve
Yeah,
his...
I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry?
Attorney Kocher, go ahead.
Sorry, his letter was submitted at the sign, and the date of the letter is May 6th. He submitted it at the last council meeting. He did change his effective date so he could have the benefit of the full pay period through May 16th, but his letter was submitted, signed, and submitted on May 6th, and he had officially resigned, effective on the 16th.
Okay.
Just for your clarification.
So his effective last day was the 16th, whether he was at the committee meeting or not.
That's a Davis resignation, okay. Yes.
All right, and I'm reading a letter, and this is from the previous city attorney, where she said that they have 14 days from his resignation date to post it, and then they have to have 30 days to accept the applications. Now, if he resigned on the 16th, then posting it and having 30 days is going to actually push us past our next council meeting. I'm just wondering if that's grounds for someone who doesn't have time to apply in time, to appeal it, and take us through the ringer of the court system to get that clarified.
Clerk Jeffries.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Alder Galvin, I understand some of your questions. Just to be clear that I had provided notice to the public via a press release that the seat was vacant as of the council meeting on the 6th.
Okay, and again, I'm not arguing that. What I'm asking, I guess, and this is of our city attorney, is do we leave ourselves open to have anyone file a claim that we didn't follow the state statute and they didn't have the time to properly apply for this position?
No.
So no one would have a legal basis to come after the city and possibly,
No, I'm not sure what you're thinking about, Alder Galvin, but the notice was published on May 7th. It's going to stay open for 30 days. That's what the statute provides, and obviously what our ordinance follows as well. There's still a 30-day notice period. Alder Weary made his resignation public many months before his actual letter and the advice that was given earlier. There was some process by which I think Alder Weary would agree to if he was here, that we had anticipated he was resigning effective that day, and he only changed his date to the 16th at the last minute. But it was my opinion that was given, that I gave to the mayor and others, that his resignation was in hand on the 6th, although it was going to be effective on the 16th because the pay period, we had a resignation in hand. We can't replace him before his date on the 16th, but we could certainly put notice out there. And we did. That notice is going to be out there for 30 days, no less than the 30-day notice. So I'm not sure what you're thinking of in terms of a claim that we're cutting anything short, because we're not.
well, and that's exactly what I want to clarify, that if someone were to put a claim and it was to go to court, would they rule against us saying, wait, even though he wasn't there, even though he said he was resigning on the 6th, his letter is actually dated the 16th because he wanted to carry on benefits till then, just like any other city employee may burn vacation time and not be here for 2 or 3 weeks before his actual last day, but his actual last day is on the 16th. Would someone have the ability to come forward and file a claim against the city?
No,
That-
I have
that's
no
all I'm
idea what
asking.
that claim would be for. Again, it's a notice period. Notice was made public, like I said, well before that the public knew he was resigning. There was news stories, etc. But we put an official notice, which is what state law requires, out the day following the council meeting at which he handed in his resignation, and it's going to stay open for 30 days. That's the requirement. If we were to cut that down to 15 days, perhaps someone would have a complaint against us, but it's a 30-day notice period.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Alder Prophet.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify because I have the statute right in front of me. So it says the city clerk shall, within 14 days of vacancy, advertise it. Doesn't say what end. So she was within those 14 days, whether it's the 6th or the 16th, to post it. And then that 30-day clock starts. It says applicants must submit it within 30 days of the initial advertisement of the vacancy. So the 30-day mark is not in relation to when the position was vacant. That 30-day clock is in relation to when the clerk posted it, just for clarification. So I think that's why the attorney is saying no, there would be absolutely no claim for someone to say they weren't given proper time, because within 14 days, it doesn't say 14 days post, it just says within, which it was.
So are there any other points on the amendment? Alder Presley?
Yeah, I'm in favor of this amendment. I don't think we have any grounds based on the reading of the ordinance for why we would have to push it back. I think I agree with Alder Prophet that we don't want this to remain vacant. It is our imperative to fill this. That's why this statute and the ordinance is the way it is, so that we can quickly have representation for a district that is right now not being represented. I'll also add I am on 2 committees that Alder Weary was on. Those right now are not full. Improvement and Services does not have a chair, so we are not functioning as a full body until that seat is filled, and I'd like to see it filled as soon as possible. I'll also add I'm going to be gone on the June 24th meeting, which is my responsibility. But if we do push that back, that means that I'm not going to have a vote in that, which again we're we're not fully representing there in the way that I think we should. And I don't see really any convincing reason why we should push it back when we don't have to by ordinance, when I don't see really what we gain by waiting another 2 weeks. It is, we will have the opportunity to talk to them. We will have 3 days to review them, look into them. I'm not sure how many applicants we're going to have, but I don't imagine it's going to be so many that we're going to run out of time to review these people. I'm happy with this amendment. I think we should keep it going as is.
Thanks, Alder. Other comments? Alder Hinkfist and Johnson.
Quick question. When we put out the notice and we ask people to submit their names, what else do we ask? What do they have to send in?
Thank you, Alder Hinkfist. So there is a form on the website that is a web form. There is on that web form name, address, contact information, and also the person's type of employment. We also ask them to submit nomination papers the same way that you do for running for council. And so there's a header, and there has to be 20 qualified valid signatures in the district.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jeffries. The reason that we pushed it to the following city council and the personnel committee was because it was posted and we didn't ask them to fill out any questions. So one of the concerns that came up at the personnel was, okay, we can't really give them these questions on Friday and expect them to be done by Tuesday. We just thought that was a short time period, but we could change that. Maybe another option would be to have a special meeting the week before that council so it gets filled timely, but we also then get some resumes because we're not asking for a resume. We're not asking them to answer any questions, some of the same things that we all go through. So I don't know if I offer that as an amendment or
what would that be?
To have a special meeting so that we can make a decision a week before the council meeting on the 23rd.
Well, and I think it's obviously allow for consideration of that notion, but I think it's important for alders to reference the language of our ordinance, which governs the actions of our city. So the last sentence in the ordinance that Alder Prophet referenced is, thereafter, at the next regular meeting of the Common Council, all qualified applicants shall be allowed time to make a presentation regarding their qualifications to the council. The Common Council shall then, by majority vote, decide who will fill the vacancy. So this council doesn't have the ability to override an existing ordinance unless it adopts a superseding ordinance. So this item is not an ordinance.
Okay, Mayor, at our meeting, we asked the same question. This exact same question, and we were told that we could refer it. So if we have to stay within compliance, then we have to stay within compliance.
Well, I think I'll allow Attorney Kochar to speak for herself, but the question of when this alder is selected or this future alder is selected is stated very clearly in the ordinance. Whether or not you want to do something else with questions is a different matter. But when the selection is made is pretty clearly delineated in our laws. Attorney Kochar?
I would agree that I gave the same opinion multiple times at the personnel committee. I think Alder Johnson, with respect, said he wanted to make the motion to refer to staff anyway. So the committee proceeded, and that's what happened. But I do agree. I read the ordinance at the committee. I don't know what further I could do on that. Obviously, you have the ability to change the ordinance. There's a process for that. We did agree to have questions prepared in advance of the meeting on the 10th. There isn't a need to send those to a candidate ahead of time. I've been operating under the impression that you all wanted to make the process extremely rigorous. And I think having the questions ready for that meeting and perhaps not giving someone the opportunity ahead of time, all great options, as well as having those questions out in the community and all the other things we talked about at the personnel committee. We can have those questions ready for all of you. That doesn't need a special process or a special meeting.
Any response to that, Alder Hinkfist? Or?
No, I'm just listening. Thank you.
Thanks. Alder Johnson.
Yeah, just looking for some clarification. and again, a little bit of background, right? We were hoping this was going to show up on personnel committee. It didn't. And again, no, neither here nor there. And that's why a formal communication kind of was submitted when it was. So I don't want to kind of like belabor that, but I just wanted to provide some context that I think the hope was, at least with some of us, that we really wanted to maybe have some input around what that application would look like. Now, that said, I agree. We don't want to do something that is not in compliance with the ordinance. It seems to me that by having those dates on there, that's not in compliance, and certainly I wouldn't want to continue to, I guess, pursue something like that. So I can kind of get on board with the amendment, but one thing I think that I do want to get maybe clarification on from the attorney. I thought at the committee meeting, and again, if I'm wrong, please correct me. I thought the discussion was around that the council could choose what action it wanted to take regarding applicants. So if you could please clarify, do we actually have to select an individual to fill the role, or we just have to take some type of action?
Sure, I can provide the additional clarification on that. So I read you the ordinance. What I had said is that we have an ordinance that provides additional guidance. I think this is the same information I sent in the email to you. But under state law, again, this ordinance was adopted to provide further direction to the council on how to fill a vacancy. But under state law, if we were to toss this ordinance as an example, under state law, you can choose to have a special election, you can leave the position vacant, or you can do an appointment. Because the ordinance is in place, the direction is to fill it through this appointment process. But I think I brought that up at the time. If you were to change the ordinance, repeal the ordinance, you have other options. And again, also though, if a candidate, if we go through the vacancy process and there's an appointment, if the person doesn't get 6 votes, there isn't an appointment. It requires a majority vote. That was also another question I believe that was asked to the committee for clarification. It's not something that we do meeting after meeting after meeting until someone is picked. A candidate requires a majority vote to become the appointed alder. I hope I'm answering your questions. If I recall them, there were a lot of questions at personnel, but that I think is...
Yeah, and I think if there's one thing that we learned through the committee process, right there, the ordinance could probably use some revisions and additional review. That's why, again, I don't want to, this is certainly not a hill I want to die on, but I do think that there were some folks that wanted to perhaps have an application process with questions. And it feels like at this point now, the window's unfortunately closed, for us to be able to do that, unless... I think they could do the presentation. That's how the ordinance is defined, but does it say that we can ask questions? Or is that permissible?
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be an agenda item, just like any other. You can ask questions and debate. We did have a conversation about established questions as opposed to the email I sent, which is questions just germane to the position. If you want to have established questions, if you want us to ask things for the candidate to submit or to bring with them, there's opportunities for do that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
All right, thanks, Attorney Kocher. Thanks, Alder Johnson. Alder Eck.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to clarify, so based on the amendment to refer to staff to seek input from alderpersons regarding the Common Council vacancy application process and requirements of applicants, and finalize a set of suggested questions to be brought back. And applicants will be presented at the June 10th, 2025 meeting, period. That was what the amendment was. So based on that, I'm clarifying so that it'll go back to staff, the list of questions, then it'll go to the next personnel committee before our next council meeting. Correct? So there would be still that.
Questions you're talking about?
Yeah. I just want to make sure I'm clarifying. So there could be that that's at that next meeting, you're, I guess, coming up with your suggested questions and then.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alder Johnson on that.
I think the dilemma, right, is the time for when applications are due,
Right.
and then the time that they would have to present to council, that window is very short, and it would almost be unjust, right, to ask people to respond to questions in a couple of days. I shouldn't say unjust. It would be a burden, right? And that's why the committee opted to do the next council meeting then, so that way you gave all applicants a little bit longer period of time to respond to those questions. But again, if it's out of compliance, I certainly wouldn't advocate for that, but that's why we recommended the way we did.
Right. But what I'm saying is it would be something that would go to personnel, which is a week before the council meeting. So the questions should be, I know it's a recommendation, but it would still be a recommendation. And so those questions, I would hope could be let known to the applicants in advance. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Grant.
Just a quick question for the clerk. Is that enough time for you to verify signatures?
So I always verify signatures when the deadline has come. So the deadline is June 6th at 11:30. If there's anyone who gives me their papers at 11:29 on June 6th, then I'll be verifying those signatures that day. For 20 signatures, it doesn't take me that long. School board's a little longer, it's 100 signatures. So I wouldn't put anything forward without having verified the signatures.
Okay, so you will verify that day.
If I get any that day.
Sure.
But any that I've received ahead of, like if I receive,
Prior.
I have one right now in my office. So I'll verify those signatures before the week is over.
Okay, and if they do submit it on that Friday, since the window is closed, if there's any issues with their signatures, they will not have time to correct it.
That is accurate.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor will say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. Entertain a motion. Motion to approve as amended, made by Alder Prophet and seconded by Alder DeLee. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. You guys have it. That item has been approved as amended. Next, informational items, building report and municipal court report for April 2025. And then we've got a committee of the whole item to approve a resolution in support of DS 300 voting tabulator purchase by Brown County. On that, Clerk Jeffries.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. So this was an opportunity that had been presented to me by Clerk Patrick Moynihan. We've had lots of discussions behind the scenes for the last year regarding the age and quality of our DS 200 tabulators. So the county, this resolution is essentially encouraging Brown County to purchase those machines for all the jurisdictions in Brown County, including the city of Green Bay. So they would, again, purchase the machines. We would have an agreement with them for the use of those machines. And I encourage this council to approve the resolution.
Thanks, Clerk. Any questions for our clerk or discussion? What's that? Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that. A motion to approve made by Alder Prophet and seconded by Alder DeLee. Discussion on that, Alder Grant.
Just a question, Clerk Jeffries, I don't know if you can answer this. Now, with these newer machines, are they connected to the internet?
So no machines are connected to the internet, right? Not ES doesn't make products. Election system and software don't make that type of product. If you're asking if the machines have modems, this is actually not the time to ask that question. They haven't been purchased yet. We haven't gotten a way to get to basically retire our DS 200s, which do not have modems. I do understand that the DS 300 is modem capable, but the modems would be an extra cost. That's what I understand at this point. Once we get to the point where the county approves the resolution to purchase the DS 300s, then obviously I'll work with the law department to construct an agreement for the use of those machines.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this? Seeing none, all in favor will say aye. Opposed, nay. You guys have it, and that that item has been approved. Next, we have all of the resolutions. Motion to suspend the rules and take up these resolutions with one roll call vote made by Alder Prophet, seconded by Alder Stevens. With the exception of item 5. I think was the motion, right? All in favor will say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The rules are suspended for items 1 through 7 with the exception of 5. Motion to adopt made by Alder Prophet, seconded by Alder Stevens. Any discussion? We will use the board. That's again 1 through 7 with the exception of 5.
You may vote. I'm sorry. You may vote.
And those are adopted unanimously. Now on to resolution 5. Refer? Or should we do refer or hold? Referred. Yeah. Motion to refer made by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Eck. All in favor will say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That resolution has been referred to staff. Ordinance is first reading. Motion to suspend the rules and take up these items with one roll call vote made by Alder Prophet, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor will say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The rules are suspended. Motion to advance made by Alder Presley, seconded by Alder DeLee. All in favor will say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Those ordinances are advanced to second and final reading. Petitions and communications. Adjournment. Motion to adjourn made by Alder DeLee, seconded by Alder Eck. All in favor will say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Recording stopped.